Good morning, viewers. Welcome to Frankly Speaking with Vibhuti Jha. The week, the year 2020, 2021 is endless story of excitement, depression, concerns, and hope. That is the eternal part of a human life, the quintessential thing called hope. We always hope for the better. But one has to realize that everything that happens around us makes an impact and has an implication for the future, on individual lives, collective lives, community life, and life of the country and the universe itself. Look at coronavirus. I still prefer to call it Wuhan virus because it emerged from there. So if the Spanish flu can be called Spanish flu, why the hell not Wuhan virus? Because it emerged from there. But think about it. Trillions of dollars have evaporated from the business market. Economies are shattered. Global pandemic, people are trying to revive the economy and the lives of people to return to normalcy. What we do know also, that Wuhan virus, the pandemic, was gender neutral, religion neutral, country neutral, age neutral. It established its neutrality in terms of boundaries, nations, and countries. But nobody has been able to find out who did it. That is the important part, because that's the important part to determine for us people, because millions of lives have lost. Lifestyle has changed. We will not be the same that we were there, because we have to wear the mask now, because we do not know. Even the pandemic, even the vaccine will be the end solution to the problem, because we know that even common flu kills 30 to 40,000 people every year in the country, in the United States, despite vaccine being there. So there are a lot of issues to be done, but I came across a very interesting line, and I will share that with you. But prior, I must introduce my wonderful panel. Both of them are terrific people. I have the pleasure of welcoming Mr. Vimal Goyal, a fellow Long Islander, a business person, entrepreneur in real estate business, and a remarkably successful guy who has his nose and ears to the ground because he's a businessman. Everything impacts him. On the other hand, I have Rajiv Khanna, a very dear friend. We have known each other for many years. And Rajiv, in addition to being a shareholder in a prominent law firm, he also is the founder and the chief of Indo-American Chamber of Commerce. Rajiv, would that be correct?
India-America Chamber of Commerce.
India-America Chamber of Commerce does a lot of constructive businesses in terms of providing finance. And so there is I have great pleasure in welcoming both of you. But before I launch on the subject matter, I wanted to read you something which I read very, very recently, that US has become a weaker nation. Its people are more concerned about selfish needs and have turned their political system into a cheap entertainment. America's ability to adapt and reinvent itself has been stripped away by politicians who had trained their constituents to view change with fear and anger. It is almost like a true statement. So America is in a mess. We have seen security threatened. There are more soldiers and National Guards in DC today than there are in Afghanistan. So, and the barricades are being raised for a free democracy's inauguration of the president under heavy Hindi word of bandobast, as we call it in India, So, think about it from that point of view. So how do you think this entire ugly scenario will play out going forward between the impeachment, between the Democratic Party call, President-elect talking about unity, coming together, but actions are all divisive. So Rajiv, I would want you to kick off the conversation.
Yeah, firstly, I wouldn't be a lawyer if I didn't start with a disclaimer. So let me give my disclaimer. The views expressed are mine and mine only, and not of my law firm or the chamber. So I am not as pessimistic about this scenario as maybe Vibhuti you sounded. I think every failure is an opportunity to restart in a better manner. And America is going to learn from its failures and will restart in a better manner. So now we have National Guards to make sure there is no rioting, there's no disruption, and the inauguration will take place. We will have a new president. We will see how well he does in the next 4 years, depending on how well he does. Democrats will be reelected to the White House, or the Republicans would come back. So it's a process. It's a process that will play itself out. America will emerge stronger at the end of this process. We have all been forced to adapt to technology. I think the efficiencies in the economy have been forced on us. We are all forced to work from home. And suddenly I'm getting up and saying, so why do I spend 2 hours commuting and 1 hour getting ready for office? Those are 3 extra hours in my life today that I can use to work, exercise, be more healthy, get more productivity. And why do I have to run from meeting to meeting when there's Zoom and all these other places where I can meet people? And so I'm saving so much time. So I think this pandemic has forced us into more efficiency, which would have probably come anyway, but would have taken 10, 20 years. So it's fast forwarded that efficiency into our economy. So therefore, we will rebound as a nation much stronger at the end of the pandemic, which hopefully will go out this year. And we would have discovered many things which we wouldn't have discovered, and which would add to our productivity. So this technology efficiency has been forced on people, which would have otherwise taken 10, 20 years. So we have actually, at the end of this process, we would have leapfrogged 10 or 20 years in our development. So that's my take on the situation.
Oh, that's absolutely terrific. And as I did not propose a gloomy picture, but the question is that, as the saying goes, that every disaster is an opportunity for someone.
Right.
So
That's
the World Trade Center was destroyed; it was rebuilt.
Yeah.
India suffered much bigger political crisis than the United States. The shameful attack on the Capitol Hill, which nobody can ever support. There is no
Right.
way we can ever support. But looking back at India experience, we experienced emergency and emerge stronger from there. So you are absolutely right that we always emerge better, from any disaster. So having said that, I totally agree with you. That's my point of view as well. As a sportsman, I always say I learn the best from my opponents, and I learn the best from after getting defeated royally in a battle, right? So, we will all emerge stronger. So let's keep the hopeful and the quintessential thing called hope, which drives the humanity forward. So you have said it very well that the leapfrogging will happen. And today, look at it this way. You are absolutely right. Today, we didn't have to travel to the studio an hour on the road and the traffic. Today, we are sitting happily from our own little domain, So that's brilliant. So this has opened up a new opportunity. Today, I'm able to interview people from any part of the world, from Geneva to India to anywhere. So this is an example of how we will shape up. So, Vimalji, coming to you on this particular issue,
Okay.
Mr. Biden is going to come up with a $1.9 trillion relief package. And that's not the end of it, because it is made up of lots of numbers. Another 1,400 relief checks to people, an increase in unemployment benefits, commitment of $400 billion for COVID fight, and varieties of numbers which are there. But somewhere along the line, as a businessman, as a banker, as an economist, as a businessman, and everybody else, we have to remember somebody got to pay for it.
Yes.
So the question arises, can United States afford printing of notes? Because this is a global scenario. So every country will have to offer relief packages, whether rupee is printed more, whether pound sterling is printed more, or Deutsche Mark is printed more. There are certain norms will be changing. So how do you see this relief package working, which is a much needed thing? Let's put it this way. Let's not argue on the need for it. That the government needs to step in to provide the relief to people because they are not the ones who are responsible for it. So while we find the villain, we have to put the money in. But how will the economy handle, the US economy handle its own credit rating? If you and I ran a deficit of this kind, our credit score will be negative. Forget about less than 500. So how is this country going to handle, and what will be the impact on taxpayers like all of us here?
Well, Vibhuti Ji, thank you for having me on your program. I appreciate. Now, to answer that question, Vibhuti Ji, and get to this, we have to look at the background and go back to 2020 beginning of what exactly happened in this country and how this plan that Biden is proposing or whatever Trump did last year, how that will impact the economy and how we are going to pay for this. Now, keep in mind when Ronald Reagan came to power in 1980 and till 88, everything that he proposed, and he was a Republican, by the way, and as we all know, and I'm a Democrat, everything he proposed, everyone opposed. Every measure that he came out with, he lowered corporate taxes after Carter. He lowered taxes on individuals. And he said, if I lower the taxes, the economy will be booming. And everyone said, no, that's not correct. Democrats opposed it. But he was right for what he did, even though I'm a Democrat. Now, what's happening now, what Trump did in 2020 and what Biden will do now is actually going to be in rearview mirror 4 years from now. The reason is this is an emergency now. This is a catastrophe. This is a pandemic that we're dealing with, something that we have never seen before. Yesterday, I was traveling to Boston. On the highway, I was telling my son, you know, I've never seen this highway so empty. It was 10 in the morning. There was no car after Trog's Neck Bridge going in my direction. So later on, yes, there were cars, but what I'm saying is there was maybe 10% of the traffic I've ever seen. So this is something that needs to be dealt with, no matter how we do it. And I want to go back to the history of America. There have been crises in this country. And the crises have been, and we all know, 2008. We know 9/11. We know what happened Carter time after Carter was the president.
Right.
All of these crises were dealt with by US, by the system that we have in place here. You look at Japan, for 20 years they had a recession. You look at other countries, they never come out of the poverty. But US always comes back. And this is what we need to deal with. Whatever Biden is going to do, we need to do this, and we need to do this now.
Thank you very much. I mean, I totally agree with you because, whether Democrat or Republican, it doesn't matter. That's just a label. It's just a question of a belief system. But at a human level, at the economy level, the US will, I have always said that US will survive any onslaught or disaster for one good reason. And I can make an analogous statement with India, because United States is 3 times larger than India, has 1/4 the population, and it's a remarkably resource-rich country. It's not a one-product country, one commodity country. It is a resource-rich country, and it has a reasonably great infrastructure in place. So US will survive all of it. But my concern is that politics has become, from 91 that I'm in this country, it has become very vicious.
That's correct.
So both parties know that we can take advantage of the resources that we have. But at some point in time, the bitterness of politics, which is so much driven by hate today, I've seen that happen from 1991 to today. I'm an eternal optimist. I don't believe in pessimism at all, because every disaster is an opportunity. I believe in it. Every no can be turned into a yes. So I operate on that basis, but at one point in time, if a husband and wife have serious quarrel, they separate. They end up taking a recourse to leading a alternate life. My concern is that is the political viciousness, is the political divide will cause or may impact the social fabric, the political fabric. Right now, the atmosphere is if I don't agree with you, that means I'm a condemned man. I'm open to attack. That
Yes.
is not the American way. It was always discussion, debate, and dialogue. It's no longer that. Rajiv, what do you say about that in specific reference to the second impeachment of the president that has happened? I am not familiar with this exercise that the House impeached him without giving him an opportunity to, as a criminal, to respond to that. So in a justice system like America, you are not guilty until proven. The Congress seems to have become the judge, jury, and the executioner. How fair is that process? I wanted to understand that as a layman.
No, the House impeachment is like a grand jury indictment. So a defendant generally does not get a chance before the grand jury to present his case. Only the prosecutor does. So the House impeachment is like an indictment. Now the trial will take place in the Senate. But frankly, I think this is not what the founding fathers had in mind when they gave the Congress the power to impeach a president and to remove him from office. That power was given to remove a president from office, essentially, who was unfit for the office, who had committed high crimes and misdemeanor. Now, let's assume that the Democratic point of view is right, that President Trump is guilty of high crimes and misdemeanor. The trial starts on January 19th. There is no physical way for it to end on January 20th. He is out of the White Office on January 20th. So the trial will end, the trial to remove him from office will end when he's already himself removed from office, or the Constitution has removed him from office and there is a new president. So this trial is not about removing, this impeachment and this trial is not about removing President Trump from office. This trial and impeachment is about not allowing him to contest the 2024 election. So the Congress will, so the whole Nancy Pelosi's thesis is this man is too dangerous to be allowed to run for president again. But who the hell is she to say that? That may be entirely true. He may be entirely unfit to be the president. But the founding fathers did not envision that Congress would make that decision, whether he runs the next time. The people of the United States in their collective wisdom will make that decision. Maybe they'll decide rightly, maybe they decide wrongly. But that was a power given to the people. We are not a system. Look, there are parliamentary democracies in the world. Britain is the best example, where the legislature decides who the next head of state is going to be. India is the same way. Parliament essentially decides who's going to be the next prime minister and the head of the state. But here in our constitution, the right was given to the people to directly elect the next head of the state. And what Nancy Pelosi is doing is taking that right away from the people by saying, I'll tell you who's fit to run and who's not fit to run. That is not the power of the Speaker of the House. That is not the power of the Congress. That is a gross abuse of power. Because if he is entirely unfit to run as president, well, there's a primary system. The Republican Party will decide who the next candidate is going to be. And there is going to be an election where people should decide whether he's fit to be the next president or not fit to be the next president. But it is not for the Congress to prejudge whether he is fit to be the next president or not after Biden. So that is an abuse of power, in my view. That is not what the founding fathers had in mind, because if Congress has to elect the president, then that's fine. That's a different system, but that's not our system.
Thank you very much for clarifying that. Then the second question as a follow-up that I will request you to address is, does the president, who is accused in a manner that you said, that Nancy Pelosi doesn't have the constitutional power to decide whether he should contest the next election or not, does the president have a right to sue the Congress for an unjust impeachment, which is from his point of view?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay.
I have not studied this matter in depth. It's not, I can tell you it's not happened in the history of the United States. If he does sue, that would be a very untested matter. Although with President Trump, you cannot say he will not do it.
Yeah, right.
He's
Knowing
done
him.
many untested things.
I'm glad we are able to smile and laugh about that scenario.
So, but it is it would be a very untested doctrine for a president to sue the Congress, to the House for impeachment. And who does he sue? The members who voted against him, or what does he do? I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
The
I'm 100%
other-
sure
the
that some
the
of
other thing
Trump's
is-
attorneys are testing it out.
But the other thing is that I don't think that, see, the impeachment is, these people are paid by us. You know, you and I pay the salary, right? We pay the salary to do the work of the nation, not to run the partisan politics, okay? They did an impeachment one. They knew before they did the impeachment they did not have the votes, right? So they wasted months on impeachment, on our payroll, being on our payroll, while you and I pay taxes for their salary, and they didn't do the nation's work.
Right.
They don't have the votes this time either. So this is a political nautanki, as we say in Hindi.
Right.
So we don't pay these politicians to do political nautanki. They pay these politicians to do the work of the nation. And so they either be sure that they have a reasonable chance of removing him from office after he's removed himself from office, after the Constitution has removed him from office.
That's true.
Or they did not do it. I mean, why do we have to tell them not to waste our money? Or they frankly shouldn't draw salary for the period when they're doing this political nautanki.
But don't you think they're
why
more,
do we have to pay to
1 minute, Vimalji, 1 minute. You know, you are right. This is a very important thing you brought in, that while they are doing this work, they should not draw a salary.
They should not draw a salary, right? They're doing their own work. That's
You're
fine.
right. Vimalji, I will come to you on this matter. It's very
No
important
problem.
because we know that angels are not governing the country. It's the politicians who are governing the country.
right, right.
Democracy has a beautiful inward system of self-correcting itself.
Yes.
Democracy self-corrects itself. That's the beautiful hope that we have. I was of the opinion that while millions of us suffered
Yeah.
and country needed relief to businessmen in varieties of ways, the Congress was drawing its salary, sitting at home and doing nothing. Do you think as people, we should demand that you forfeit your salary and you also take the same relief check that you are giving it to us? This is a very important question, and I'm coming to you with this part, that such an aggressive way to go for a political enemy, it doesn't breed unity and coming together of the country. You know, and one of the nastiest things that I have seen in the last 4 years, that virtually the left, liberal, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, and all of them have adopted a style that anybody, and including the big media, they are attacking the 70 million people, the Clintons, Hillary Clinton's deplorables, in a remarkably vicious way. Do you, as a Democrat, as a self-confessed Democrat, do you approve of that? And if you approve of it, why? And if not, what is your suggestion to your party members?
Okay. Here's the thing, Vibhuti Ji. Democracy in US had changed substantially. At this moment, there is a political violence in US on both sides, right and the left. And it will not go down as long as the mob action is tolerated by people. And this is really a mob action. Now, what has happened is democracy used to be deliberative. Deliberative basically means you elect the legislatures, you elect the congressmen, the senators, they go sit in the Capitol Hill or the state legislative, they discuss the bill, they discuss the law, they negotiate these things, and then they come to an agreement, and then they pass the law, which
Right.
is supposed, this is how it's supposed to be, because we elect these people and send them to the Congress, send them to the state in Albany or wherever the state is, capital is, and then they do this. That's called deliberative democracy.
Right.
Now, what has happened is there's another type of democracy. It's called participatory democracy. Now, what that basically means is people who are not elected, just the general public, just the people in the public, they get together and they incite a violence. They incite a protest that turns into a violence. And look at Black Lives Matter, the whole fiasco that happened last year before. It's been going on for several years. Every one of the protests, there was no elected, pretty much, I would say very maybe less than 1% of elected official in there. Most of these people are people, outside leaders who have started these protests, and then they go out, they burn Starbucks, they burn Rite Aid, and then they cause violence. Now, this is what happened in Capitol Hill on the 6th of January, that a leader incited his own supporters, told them to go out and fight for them, fight for him as well as them. And he didn't really say a violence, but the kind of words he used creates the violence, causes people to be violent and to go out. If I were to tell you at this moment the purpose of these people going into Capitol Hill building, the real goal was to get rid of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, as
Wait,
well as
you are making a
Pence.
very explosive statement, Vimalji, that he incited the violence. Like, I do not know if you have read his speech or heard his speech. Even Alan Dershowitz and other attorneys, even this guy from Georgetown, is a very Frank Turley, Professor Turley. They said that his statements were not designed, they do not rise to the level of inciting violence. He was expressing himself in let's go fight. But that's the American cultural situation. America loves to fight. I'm not going to give in until I have complete evidence that, so let's go fight. Let's fight for ourselves. Do you think, this is a very important question as educated people as we are and relevant people that we are, to address that part. That do you think that Trump was really that foolish that he would send 100 people or 200 people to storm the Capitol to stop the counting of votes, or the Senate and the Congress? That's what my thought process is this, that if I were advisor to either Biden or Trump, I would say contain your people, because that's what has led to the end of his legacy. You and I will all agree that Trump was not a buffoon. He was a smart politician, a smart guy. Would he commit a suicide in this matter? That's an important part. There are actions you take, there are results, consequences are very different. I totally agree with that. You do not anticipate that this would happen in this particular way. But as a reasonable people that we have to analyze that why would he stage a coup to remain in power? That's the point which I'm trying to raise here. Why the coup has been conducted in many African nations and under developing countries where the military has gone and thrown out a party and the president captured him. None of that was the intent of that demonstration. What I find was that what he was trying to do is that just as in 2016, the Democratic Party came with millions of people as a parallel demonstration, not my president, and many actresses and many people gave violent statements, of that we will kill him, we will blow up the White House. Think about it like that.
Yeah,
Was
well, I
this,
agree with you,
Rajiv,
Vibhuti.
I will come to you on that, but let me hear Rajiv to say something on this. Yeah.
Okay.
So, the point is, powerful political leaders, even if they're the most passive, can incite violence.
Mhm.
And one of my all-time favorite movies is Gandhi. I don't know how many times I've seen it. And you remember the scene there when Gandhi and other Congress leaders make speeches, and as a result, the mob goes and attacks the police station and effectively burns to death police officers.
Right.
So unfortunately, one of the drawbacks of being a powerful leader is that you can inadvertently incite violence. Of course, Gandhi did penance for his role in inciting violence. He admitted that he incited violence. He never disputed that he incited violence. But he did penance, tried to calm the situation. Trump is no Gandhi, we all know that. He has not done penance for his role in inciting violence. But, we don't expect him to be Gandhi. There was only one of them. One of them. Right? There's only one Mahatma. There's only one politician in the world who has got the title of a Mahatma and been a politician all at the same time.
Right.
So, while it's very regrettable what happened at the Capitol Hill, particularly the death of the police officer and 4 other innocent people, I believe. I mean, my heart and soul goes to their families, as all our thoughts should. It is an unfortunate part of political movements that they can inadvertently incite violence. I'm sure many of the leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement did not intend to incite violence, because the violence actually hurt their cause more than helped their cause.
It was hijacked by Antifa.
They made them wrongdoers as opposed to the people who had been wronged. But that happens in a political rally, that the mob's feelings take over. Yes. I think that's what happened here. The mob's feelings took over, and they went way beyond. They should have peacefully protested outside Congress, as is their constitutional right. And instead they stormed the Congress. I don't think they wanted to take Chuck Schumer or Nancy Pelosi.
Right.
But frankly, I wouldn't be either surprised that a lot of them, if they could, would have killed them. They were certainly armed. So that is a very unfortunate part of any kind of a political movement, that it can incite violence. And I don't know what can be done about it. The movements on the left, the movements on the right have had the problem. Freedom movements have had this problem. Even in our own country, a freedom movement led by the most non-violent person in the history of this planet has led to violence. So I'm not sure what can be done about it. I wish something could be done about it, but I don't think that you can squarely blame the leader for what the mob does.
Absolutely correct, because the laws of unintended consequences always plays out in its own way, and we all know that we try to do something and something else happens. So the question here is that it's a very remarkable story of humanity, that humans always fight. We always talk of peace, then we indulge in violence. That's a tragedy of humanity, as somebody said very correctly. The human mind is so much full of conflict. All that matters is what you are serving at that point in time, bandages or bullets. So that's the sad part of human life. But important part is, Vimalji, is that how do we account, how do we deal, regardless of our party affiliations and beliefs and everything else, that violence is not the way out. That, we have, it's all on record. It's not that I'm making up the story. Look at from the Democratic side, from Vice President candidate elect, Kamala Harris, to CNN, MSNBC, everybody talking about, when did you think that the protesters are supposed to be peaceful? So the narrative that you advance for my party is totally antithetical to the narrative of the other party. So how do we curb in the 21st century with so much of knowledge, information, the need for peace? We don't need to be taught all of it. How does that happen? And I'm taking it as a journalist, as a human being, as a businessman, from 2016 onwards, that Trump generated so much hatred that people were telling, let the impeachment begin and let everything happen within 19 minutes of his swearing in. If somebody is subjected to that kind of a vile attacks, what do you think is the mindset of that individual? So, Vimalji, your call on this matter.
Okay, yeah, Vibhuti Ji, I don't have an answer how to fix this. The problem is that um, it's inherent in the system. Now, if you look at what happened in Black Lives Matter and what happened with all the protests, the thing is that there's always.
I will just say something here. I am all for the causes of the Black Lives Matter. I'm talking about what Rajiv said, that you did not intend that, but the movement got hijacked by violent people.
Yes, that's what I was trying to get to.
Yeah.
What it is there are people in power. There are people in power, whoever they are, the elected people and Trump or whoever. Now there are people outside, and that applies to US as well as India. What happens is, and your statement that how do we eliminate violence? How do we eliminate all these problems that happen? And it happens in India, like whatever is going on. What happens is people who are not in power, the only way they can prove themselves, only way they can come out and show to the people that they care about these people is to incite these people, insurrect these people to come out and protest. Now, this is their goal. This is the new democracy, Vibhuti Ji. This is what we're going to be living with. You're going to have Biden in the office. What do you think is going to happen a month or 2 months from now? People are still going to be protesting. There will be different causes, yes, because there are new causes every day. What happens, these people behind the scene who are not in the power, they come out and they incite people, they get these people together and say, look, we need to protest. Just like the day Trump was elected, next day you had protests right away. So, and that causes violence because it solves the purpose of these people. This is what happened in Soviet Union. This is what happened in Bolivia when they threw the president out because everyone came out and they said, this is not right. That's exactly what we're dealing with.
Which brings to the another aspect of that. So now there are times when we do things because we do not know. And then there are times when we know and yet we do it. And I'll give you an example. During our time, my time as a student days in college, smoking was a fashion statement. Even girlfriends wanted you to smoke because it looks stylish. Correct? Today, we know what it does to us with extensive research and exposures that have happened, including the fact that the cigarettes were laced with certain chemical additives that made it addictive for people, right? That was the allegation against the cigarette industry. So my statement to the young people, my son and other young people, is that now, if you smoke, knowing what it does to you, right? Knowing what it does to you, that means you have suicidal tendencies or a self-destructive tendencies, right? So I may not discriminate in hiring you, but I will wonder, how good are you going to be a hire in my company if you have a self-destructive tendencies? So now that we know that violence is always leads to death of many innocent lives. This is very interesting. The priest, pujari, the church leader or the ayatollah, he never dies, but people die in the name of religion.
That's correct.
When we know when we have the knowledge, then how do we address the situation? So let's take this example here. Science. Joe Biden made a very powerful statement. I commend him for that. that we will take the decision for COVID based on science. And you know what? When I heard that, what my immediate question was, wow, that's truly great. Let's
Yeah,
also examine what does science have to, what has science has got to do with religion? You know, it brings about the second question to talk about it, that as humans, whether you are black, white, Chinese, Japanese, African, any part of the world, to belong to any faith, our nose, ears, mouth, and the various parts of the body may not be the same, but they perform identical functions. Our blood is red, our teeth is white, we
that's
are
right.
bald, somebody is not. You know, these are all universal features, right? What has religion got
Yes,
to do with it? It's a question. So that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to elevate the conversation to the point that knowing what we know,
yes,
would we do that? Why do we still do that? That's the point. It is a failing. How do we, I'm not saying eliminate violence, because you cannot eliminate anything. It will
that's
remain.
correct.
Point is, how do we curtail that? How do we rationalize it? Because that's the way, if that's not the case, then what are we educated for? You know, we know for sure that the thunder and lightning don't happen because gods are angry. Now we know that earth is not flat. We know that 99% we are all same. Genome research has proved. Now we know that men are responsible for the gender determination of a child. So a man doesn't have to have more than one wife or four wives to, to get a male child or a specific gender. When we know all this, then how do we address that challenge?
Vibhuti ji, you're right, actually. But you know what it is? The way we take care of this is a process. It's not going to happen overnight. It's
No,
not going to change
totally agree.
overnight.
Yeah.
This is the human nature. This is our system. This is what we live with. The process is that if whenever, wherever there's injustice to people, whether they're poor or rich, whenever there's injustice to people who are black or white or different races, there is the process that we need to do. And the process is a democratic way where we use our elected officials to come out and take measures, do whatever is necessary to fix this. Now, if you see what happens in this country over the last 20, 25, or 30 years that I've been watching, since I've been, I could imagine or I could remember, is that every 4 to 8 years, there's a Democratic president. Then comes a Republican who's another elected for 4 to 8 years. Then comes another Democrat. The reason is the change is because people get frustrated with whoever is there as a president, and then they elect a different party president because of agenda and all the things that they promise. People have very short-term memory. Most of the people have very short-term memory. Or when new voters join in as a voting class, they don't know the past, or they don't really care about the past, like younger people who come in and they want to have their own agenda be announced by the candidate, and whoever favors them is who they vote for. So this is the process that we need to go through to eliminate these. There will be violence, there will be all kinds of disturbances. As you said, it's inherent, you can't change it. But the only way we can eliminate is to address every issue that's out there and not create new things, new divisions among the community, new divisions among the blacks and whites, new divisions among poor
So
and rich.
you are saying that we should not create new problems, right? And that's where this whole thing rests. Rajiv, I want to elicit your opinion. Is to, more we change, the more we remain the same. That's what Vimal is saying. The more we change, the more we remain the same. So where is the solution? What must happen that certain things must not happen? That's the point which I'm trying to raise. Is that what I mean? For example, Vimalji said very correctly that you change the government 4 years or 8 years, Democrat to Republican, Republican to Democrat. So why didn't the Democrats wait after 2016 instead of trying to throw Trump from the office from the right very first day onwards, which is what brought the bitterness and hatred? That's the point which I'm trying to say. So Vimalji contradicted himself that that's what should happen, but it didn't happen. So who is responsible? Rajiv, your thoughts?
Well, first, like Vimal, I should confess too that I am a Republican. My views naturally are slanted that way. I think the Democrats are impatient people, and I think they're inherently insecure. Look at the insecurity. They have today got both houses of the Congress and the presidency, but they're insecure that they can get themselves re-elected in 2024. That's why they want to block Trump from running. If Trump is such an evil guy, they should actually want him as a Republican candidate, right? If he's as evil as Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer say he is, then the best thing that can happen to the Democratic Party is that he's the candidate, and the country will lock, stock, and barrel throw him out, and they will be back in power. See, that's inherently insecure. Why did Watergate happen? Nixon was inherently insecure. He was popular, he was doing the right things. He was inherently insecure. Politicians are inherently insecure because the electorate is fickle, as Bimalji pointed out, and they don't like to take chances. Also, they like to make statements. And some of the statements, frankly, backfire. We would like to see our elected officials do their job, for which we say pay them, right? If I had an employee in my company who was doing things other than what I paid him for, I would fire him. Fortunately, we don't have the right to recall these politicians when they don't do what they have been told to do. They should concentrate on what, not trying to fight the 2024 election. They should concentrate. We have so many crises. We got a pandemic going on. Hundreds of thousands of people are dying every day. We have economy which needs to be rebuilt. We have people who have, we are the three of us are very fortunate. We may be suffering in business, but we're not at the point where we're going to stop. But there are people who are having trouble putting food on the table. So why is Nancy Pelosi not focusing on those people? Those are actually her voters. They are the Democrats, for most part.
And that's the sad part, Rajiv. And
why do you focus on the real problems? We have a buffoon sitting in North Korea who can explode at any moment. We have China, which is, by projections I read, would be the leading economy in 2027, only 6 years from now, because of this pandemic. God, this country has a lot of problems that our elected officials should be solving,
right,
working on. And now you have a clear mandate. You have nobody to blame other than yourself. You got the House, you got the Senate, you got the presidency. Now, God damn it, go and do the job. Okay,
Rajiv, I will just say this. Now the problem is, oh my God, I have everything. Now who am I going to blame?
There you go. I don't have Trump to blame.
Do the job that you said you wanted to do.
So here is a question to the fellow Democrat here, colleague.
Trust the collective wisdom of the country to re-elect you in 2024. If you do, you will be re-elected. And if you don't believe in that process, then you should not be a Democratic leader.
That's correct.
Thank you. Right? Let us do a few things, Vimalji. That's very important to talk about it.
No problem.
Mr. Biden has brought in several young Indians in his administration. The list is 12 or 13. One of the things that matters is that what is the impact of Biden-Kamala Harris administration going to be in relation to India? And I will preface it with my thought in it, is that at the moment, as things stand with China, that China is a highly mistrusted country in the world today. Nobody likes. Even Xi Jinping is scared to travel because people know that he's much hated, regardless of whatever is known around. China is not liked with his killer contracts and sovereign funds. The issue is very important here. For India to have a global political clout, it needs economic strength.
Yes.
China became powerful because it became an economic power.
That's
And the
correct.
power comes from the power of money and the wealth that it has. India needs
Yeah.
to do that. But
Yes.
India is a democracy.
Yes.
It almost looks like a curse on India, that everybody is always opposing whatever transformative change Modi is trying to bring. Because
Yes.
in a change, as I said in my earlier statement, change is painful. Not 100% of the people will gain. Change always affects different people differently. You will
That's correct.
always have people who are disgruntled and unhappy. So think about it from that point of view. You are going to be discussing this matter on one of the community circle challenge discussion on Saturday.
Tonight.
Please,
Yes.
please talk about this matter. What economic reforms India needs and what Indians need to sacrifice to get that, to have the economic clout, to become an economic giant in the world, to be able to stand up on its own without having to perpetually depend on others. Because and I know the evidence is very clear that Shaheen Bagh after Shaheen Bagh is going to happen. And in my estimate, India is going to experience 2020 of America in 2024 to unseat Modi. So, regardless of your party affiliations, talking about India and for India, what must happen?
Yes. Okay. Vibhuti ji, that's a very good point. Now, I'm going to mention a couple of things. Number one
Make it
is
short. Make
that
it short. Make it
India,
short. We're running out of time
yeah,
now. Yeah,
I will make it short.
yeah, please.
The thing is, see, Democratic president has always been good to India. You look at the history, Obama to Clinton to every other president has been good to India. So Biden will definitely be a lot better than what Trump is, what Indians are so afraid of, and they talk about all the time. Now, going back to India, what is happening in India right now is what Gandhi did for independence. What Gandhi did for independence is not needed today. You don't need to go out and protest everything that government is saying is good for people. What is happening with farmers bill and everything else that happened in Kashmir and other parts of the country. BJP, what Mr. Modi did is good for India, is good for people in general. But all these people do is participatory democracy where they go out and protest and oppose everything. The reason is because they want to be the leader. They want to prove to these protesters that they are for them. And that's the reason what's going on. Now, in terms of bringing out the people and making economics, India needs to do similar things, same path that China did. And to do that, we need to industrialize India. We need to put all these people to work. There's 75 crore ration cards in India, and 75 crore people are getting ration cards. I'm sure you remember when you were young that my parents had more money than they needed, but they had ration card because that's the only way to identify people. And they were given, they need to only limit the ration cards to the limited number of people and industrialize the country and make people wealthy enough to support themselves and bring India up.
Well, we're running out of time, so I will have to come back with a different thought process here. Is that yes, sacrifice is required, but democracy again offers viciousness in terms of doing things. So what I'm seeing is that anything and everything that Modi is trying to do to transform India into an economic giant. And I, as a student of economics, worked in Reserve Bank of India, student of economics, worked in Reserve Bank of India, American Express. I understand because I was there. Indian agriculture needs fundamental shift. Even people who are
I
opposed
agree.
to Modi, they talked about that this change was required, and I know it was required. But the vested interest has gone into it so deeply that they
Yes.
are saying that Supreme Court said, have a talk, and the farmers union are saying, we will not talk, repeal first.
That's
And I'm going to
ridiculous.
say, if you're going to use threat politics,
Yes,
then
that's
that's not going to
ridiculous.
work. And I hope Modi doesn't relent on that. You
No,
cannot
he will not.
threaten to us. Rajiv, coming to another thing, there was a very interesting news item that I saw, and it is India related. And we are all Indians promoting a lot of business between India and the US, that a UK think tank listed India into the club of difficult four, as they call it. Have you heard about that? Difficult four. And they are listing countries like China, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and India together. So these are the difficult four countries. Now, this is where it annoys me. This is where it annoys me that we must not take these kind of accusations, lying down. It is a very sad reflection on the professionals that we are and the
I agree.
immense clout, immense respect we draw worldwide as professionals, hardworking people, least problem as a law and order part of it, to declare India as a difficult foe, listing with Turkey, Saudi, and Russia and
Jesus
China.
Christ.
That's really disgusting. And we as a community must say that it's a think tank point of view, but that's a
Strong.
vision. We must contest that. Your thoughts in 1 minute, and then we will have this conversation again later on. So Rajiv, go ahead.
Difficult for in what way?
Or to doing business, their
Do business.
Hindutva agenda in India, difficult business, too much of expectation, India doesn't deliver, and rest of the country is an unreliable country. So the British must take their power again out. It's an East India Company kind of a mentality.
Well, look, on the constructive side, I think all criticism can be taken constructively. I think there are a number of measures that India can do to attract more capital and more investment and more trade. And I have, as you know, spent a good part of my life beating the table to get that done. I would say very little of it has got done, to my great disappointment. So to the extent that being publicly flogged as a difficult foe, I would say that's fine. India should ask the think tank to give a list of measures that would take it out of the definition of the difficult foe, should listen to other point of views, try to understand the point of views, which is what I have been trying to do at the chamber all the time, try to play bridge. Sit down and understand, listen to each other. India is not a good listener, I can tell you that.
We know everything.
Does things in its own time, in its own speed, and eventually does many things that you wanted to do. But God, try to talk to the leaders in India. Some of them are great personal friends, but try to talk to them about what the reform is needed. You're like talking to a stone wall.
Rajiv, we have to stop now. We are out of time. I want to thank both of you for being with us today, and a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much, both Vimalji and Rajiv. My closing statement is Indians must get engaged with the world around you. We can't afford
I agree.
idle,
No.
and we have to learn the art of confrontation in a positive sense, which I
Yes.
always say that whether you are a vegetarian, vegan, or ultimate believer in non-violence, ahimsa ke pujari, but if somebody attacks your family, you will have to rise up to defend your family.
That's correct.
And from that point of view, you have to be saksham. वो बड़ा अच्छा
Be
शब्द
Arjun.
है का. You have to be saksham, whether to fire a bullet or fight a sword or a judo karate, whatever instrument you use to self-defend, protect, and defend your family. Think about it from that point of view. Get engaged with the world around you. Don't take anything lying down for far too long. We have refused to become listeners and learners. That's what we have to imbibe. So thank you again, viewers. Very delighted to be with you. Have a great weekend and a wonderful week ahead. See you next week.